Go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the YouTube Auto Builders Fine Scale Live Build Show for Tuesday, October 10th, 2017. Of course, we got Miles back with us again. We missed him last time. And Ralph, of course, with us. Lloyd is in vacation, and we on vacation in Mexico, and we really feel sorry for him for having to miss this. But there is that. So last month we got started on some styrene, talking about styrene plastics and some basic structure. This week, talk about some interiors and light boxes and some of the plastics work that Ralph's been doing, because he's cheated and kind of went on ahead. Between him and Miles, I'm not sure who cheats the most effectively, but
what?
You can still call that cheating when you can do about four times as much work in the same amount of time. A cheating experience, the difference there. So anyway, thank you for joining us for this show. If you have any questions in the Q&A, and Johnny, if you'll cover the promotionals. Thank you.
Alrighty. And sorry about that, Andy. I forgot transition, so splash screen was up the whole time. Maybe one of these days I'll get the hang of this. Anyway, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules for the Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Both Tuesday and Wednesday are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. The every week Thursday show and the once a month live show with Big Bill and Barry. Those shows air at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So be sure and check your schedule so you know you're coming in at the right time. But hey, you know, if you're in the wrong time zone and you missed it, don't worry. We do record these shows, and they are posted on YouTube Model Builders on YouTube. So we have playlists where you can go back and find the shows. And also, while you're at YouTubeModelBuilders.com, be sure and click on the eMag and sign up for email notification. So when it comes out, you'll be notified. This past issue was on passenger trains. JD and his team did a good job on that one. So be sure and check that out and sign up for a notification. And well, we got two new shows, but I'll talk about them at the end of this show. And going to turn this back over to Andy and let y'all get into the shows. So it's all yours, Andy.
All right. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. Any questions in the Q&A, we'll keep an eye on that. Also, speaking about Fine Scale, we've got the Fine Scale Expo coming up the first couple days of November. And a pretty good group of us are going to that event. So if anybody in our community is going to happen to attend that show, please reach out to me. You can contact me through the G Plus community or through my Facebook page that you can find by searching my name, or you'll find me on the YouTube Model Builders Facebook page there. So if anybody else is going to go, we'd love to meet up with as many people as possible. I think there's a pretty good group of us that are going up there anyway. So you may look for some video from that show from us as well, since we're talking about Fine Scale. So, all right, Ralph, let's get into let's take a look at the cheating that you've been doing. Let's see how far along you've come with that. Because
Cheating. Okay, hang on a second. Let me just turn this down and you'll. Okay, so I managed to get a hold of, well, I shouldn't say managed to get a hold of, somebody passed it on to me. This kit is, as you can see, it was never really properly painted properly. All the guy did was use ink alcohol on top of the plastic, and it looked like crap. So I took the building apart. I have no idea whose building it is. I think it, well, no, I'm not even going to guess. It's a lot taller than a normal HO scale building, mainly because of, you see this to me is almost a full floor to ceiling window. And I was told that this could be used for O scale as well because of the size. So what I've done is I've primed it, and I use product called Stynylrez. It's made by Badger, and I really like it. It works really well through your airbrush. And then I'm using this paint I'm using is Microlux, and you can pick it up from Microscale. And some of the hobby shops are carrying it. I bought this one locally here. I didn't get it from Micromark. I got it from our local hobby shop. But you can use craft paint, which I've done before. On the last one I did, I used this Americana. And so from gray, let me turn it the other way. This is how it's turning out. So I'm using, again, a Microlux product. It's called Concrete, aged concrete, to give me the base of the building. And I can't remember what you call them, over the top of the windows, the arches, like they're done in sandstone sort of thing. And after the first coat of brick color, I went and picked randomly with a pencil, and I shaded in a brick with the pencil. And since this paint goes on relatively thin when you put it on, and I'm putting it on with a sponge, after that's dry, I go back and put the pencil the random bricks, and then come back and hit it with a second coat. The second coat, the pencil sort of semi shows through, and that's what I've been doing. And I'm doing it with a sponge, and the sponge, you can pretty well get into all the corners with the sponge just by pushing a little harder. And I'm once I have this put together properly, I will. I'm planning on a large vista of buildings, but I want to do like a forced perspective sort of thing in my town, and it's going to be a lot of narrow buildings, narrow depth front to back, to get one in front of the other, to make it look like they go off into the distance and go uphill into the back, starting low on my landscape and working myself up to the back. I'm not sure now if I had some pictures. No, I don't. Oh, there's one. Sorry, I do. That's sort of what I'm trying to achieve.
That's spectacular.
And that actually, that building almost looks like this. It almost has those same window shapes to it. The three small ones at the top, the two large ones down on the second floor, and I can't see the first floor, which basically is buried or hidden behind the buildings in front. So my idea is I have a 90-degree corner, and the corner is roughly 3.5 feet on the left side, and 3, maybe just under 3, about 26 inches on the right side. I also have the Bates Motel, which is from the movie Psycho, which I'm going to put on that short side, right up behind one of my bridges, and I'll weather the crap out of it. But the other stuff is obviously, once I get it all painted, then I have to dirty it down. But that's what I'm planning on doing, is that sort of thing. We were discussing last night with this building. My thoughts for this building is to make it a a whiskey manufacturer. So we were talking about different ways of coming up with a whiskey still to show through the windows. And I think I found the answer to what I want to do, using some Christmas ornaments and paint them copper color. It'll give me that teardrop shape, and then add some piping and so on to the top so that you see all that through the windows. So it would be, again, a shadow box because it's not going to be full depth. So that's what I'm working on. And it's going to be a tough sell because I have to experiment to get the look I want. I may have to build some scratch built buildings. I really not sure how this is going to work out. So the whole thing is an experimental trip.
You're basically with perspective too, so using some smaller scale structures toward the back. Weren't you saying that?
Well, I would like to do that, but I won't be able. I won't really.
There's not a lot of depth.
For the size of the structures I'm choosing to put in there. I can't. I can towards the left as on the long side, I guess, because that moves into where on top of my helix I have an N scale town.
Oh, yeah.
So I could do it that way. But I plan on getting the hotel from Nick from Imaginat Laser Art, and he has a couple of other buildings that I want to get to put in the background as well. And it would be a shame to sort of bury them completely in the background.
Oh yeah, that feels like a crime to me.
Especially with something plastic. Okay.
All right, I got one question for you here, Ralph, right now, and that's Sparky 107-107. How can it be HO and or O gauge when size is a big difference there?
I didn't write the instruction sheet. These windows, to be honest, and the floor from floor to ceiling is a lot larger than you would normally have. Let me see if I can show you an example.
Yeah, because the only thing I could say, and maybe Miles could help us out on this, is, yeah, the fact they kind of went a little more towards the O scale. So it really depends if in HO where you're placing it, if it's going to be up close to represent a really tall building or put it in the back. So it still looks tall, but
there's two buildings. Both of them are 3-story buildings.
Yeah.
So the one on my right, this one, is a 3-story laser cut building, and this is the plastic one. It's also 3-story. But on the instruction sheet, it says that it is HO and can be used for O scale. It says it directly on the instruction sheet.
Yeah.
It's one reason why I always say you can't trust what the manufacturer calls out as the scale of whatever it is they're making. You have to do what Ralph's doing, and that's take a look at it and see if it'll work on your railroad. When we start the Model Railroad University, I hand the students an N-scale Atlas Truss bridge side and ask them, what is this? And I always have the wise model maker, I won't say why, I'll just say wise, who immediately says, well, that's an Atlas N-scale bridge truss. And I'll say, yes, except the first time I ever saw that bridge side was in Laurel Joiners Railroad in San Antonio, Texas. Laurel did Class 1 O-gauge railroad, and that was a roof truss in his engine house, in his diesel engine house. So it's not an N scale, it's a what does it do in your scale. And for roof trusses in O scale, they work great.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of similar things where I've seen that with structures as well. You know, the structures are very variable. There are structures that have 8 or 9 foot ceiling heights. There are structures that have 12 or 14 foot ceiling heights. So it's not that far of a stretch to say that HO scale building with a very tall ceiling height could equally be used in an O-scale building that had a fairly traditional or lower ceiling height. That's how they're implying that. And we often, you know, we do a lot of selective compression. So when it comes to sheer size of structures, an O-scale structure is a good compensation in HO scale for the large structures that we often don't see, that we rarely see on layouts. I've seen HO scale structures used in N scale quite a bit, so that you can get a big manufacturing facility.
Right.
When I did my helix, I took I think it was a Tyco arched bridge. I don't even remember what it was, HO, and I put it in. I wanted to hide the center of my helix so you couldn't see the track work and the different levels. And I turned that, it's a single track HO bridge, and I turned it into a 2-lane highway in N scale. And you can't tell the difference as far as I'm concerned. That's the way I see it anyway. Just trying to find a picture of it to show you.
I've seen it. It looks like a highway bridge to me.
Wow. I didn't know I had. Oh, there we go.
Find pictures you didn't know you had, right?
Yeah. So I did sectional, sort of semi-round pieces to go in the inside my helix, and that bridge is the HO, and you can add another section to it to give you another arch, and so on. So, oh, sorry. How's that? So these sections are removable. There's 3 of them, 2 on either side and the 1 at the back. On top of this is where my N scale town is going to go. And this bridge, like I said, it's a single track HO trestle that I've used it as a highway.
Cool.
And that's what it covers. So I didn't want to see that. So I cover it with this. And eventually when I get my scenery done, there'll be a bunch of trees and so on, and all greenery done on the sides. But right now it's all a rock color. So that's what's happening with me. And I'm working hard at it. At least trying to.
What I'm trying
Andy
to
keeps
do,
interrupting me.
we've got these interiors like Ralph has some that imagine that laser art makes that Nick sent him and I to try out for the interiors going into the loading dock doors of their factory kits that have the double slide doors like his kit and my kit do. I originally seen this idea for the shadow boxes. So every time I've ever built an interior in structures, and I've not detailed them much ever, but I've illuminated them and separated them by walls inside. And I've got a few houses with complete interiors, including staircases in them now. So I've kind of went overboard, and several of these small houses have 8 or 9 lights in them, so I could illuminate them independently. And I've even put doors in so that it casts light if you look through the windows in certain ways. However, Phil Wyman had a kit that, and it wasn't a great kit, but he did pretty good. He did a really good job on it and really straightened that kit up from what it came stock, because it had the window details with the mullion and the window and the plastic for the clear acetate or whatever you would use for equivalent of glass, were all molded together, so they were difficult to paint. It had some issues, and I think it was a Yeah, there's those inserts, by the way, on Ralph's screen. And they're a shadow box. All you need to see is just back inside the building. So I'm building larger versions of that same thing for the multi-floors above his. So just like that, but above those loading docks. I've got the loading docks. That's perfectly adequate. But for the floors above it, I need to light multiple windows together, make it look like a manufacturing floor with machinery, etc. So I'm building these slightly larger boxes, and I'm building several so I can light them separately. But I originally seen this shadow box on, it was like a Walther's farmhouse or something, and they had these little square plastic boxes with the light already pre-wired into that little plastic box, and you just kind of snapped them or glued them into the assembly. What a great idea. You don't need that much to simulate the interior. You don't need, you know, hundreds of square feet in HO scale size inside the structure to get the feeling that you're looking into a living room. And something that I look forward to showing when, that Lloyd's done on his structure when he comes back for next month is he's taken photos and put them in the back of it and put some models in the foreground of those photos. I had first seen Miles do that, I think on a Trademaster TV video, maybe on here, but it seems like it was on a Trademaster show, and use some photos for backdrops, and use some, and I've got some photos from various places that for carpet and rug material to give patterned floors, which will look really good on substructures. Now for this warehouse, I don't need that. It just needs to be a dark gray floor. So I'm going to go shadow boxes and illuminate these independent shadow boxes. On the plastic structure, I'm going to do something fairly similar. This is a flat. Most of the structures on my layout are flats. In this case, I'm going to be assembling walls, or floors rather, and just putting some segments between those to isolate those sections, because the back of this will get just a big flat back on it that I can run my lights through. And this warehouse that I'm doing will probably have 6 or 8 different lights that can be Arduino controlled. Another good thing that lets you do is use these really small lights. So I buy these 0402s in bulk, pre-wired, of course, because I'm not that narcissistic. And I buy these little 0402s pre-wired. These are incredibly small, and I'm a pretty good hand at soldering, and I don't know that I would take this on voluntarily to solder these. There's something, you know, it's not for the faint of heart. But these 0402s are perfect for a couple reasons. And if you do shadow boxes, you don't need more than one, possibly 2 of these. But if you separate a building, now if you're trying to illuminate an entire fairly large Walther's Cornerstone building, you'll need larger lights. 0804 or 0603s, 0804s, the ones that Woodland Scenic sells, the larger ones like that. And even these can be run off the Woodland Scenic light hub. But you can get away with these very small lights. And what I use, I'll show you this part. Go for it. Okay. Look at that. Okay. So we'll break it just a second, get any questions that we've got in there. So, and I use these. These are 3D printed globes. There's like 6 of them in a little cluster. They're 3D printed light globes. They call them schoolhouse globes. That's what I used to see at a schoolhouse when I was growing up. But they are 3D printed from Shapeways, and they're a frosted glass looking effect because they're the FUD, the fine ultra detail, and they're transparent enough for my purpose. Now, the camera doesn't do this justice. If I try to show you this on a webcam and show you the light, I've tried, it doesn't work. All you see is the light source. But when you're looking at it in person, and you can actually see this, you actually see the globe lit up. And you can see the globe. You can see the shape of the globe. It's worth putting the detail. What's so great about the 0402s is they fit right down inside the detail. If you break these off and clean the little sprue up, there's a hole. These are effectively hollow. I drop those 0402s down into those and fill it a little bit with canopy glue, because canopy glue is effectively clear. I fill it with that so it stays as a single piece to make a nice casting, and it lights that whole thing up. And I found these lights are a lot of these that you 0402s that you buy pre-wired are wired with the leads coming off from it at an angle. It's like they lay the wire on it flat. These are my favorite. They're enameled wires, so they're super thin, like a 28 gauge or 30 gauge wire. And they're enameled, so they don't have any insulation on them, but they won't cross talk because of they won't ground or short because of the enabling on them. But the wires are soldered directly away from it, so you can fit it directly straight down into that fitting, drop a little canopy glue in it, and then feed it up through a hole in the ceiling. And if you ever do see that light through the window, you can see the globe illuminated. All right, Johnny, did you say we had some questions and comments?
Yeah, we got a comment here from Michael. Hey guys, on my industrial portion of the layout, I'm thinking of using the 3-foot rule, cardboard industrial scenery up against the wall, then adding some actual industries in front. My layout is 24 inches wide except for my corners. Is that a good idea? And one more comment real quick. Ron down there in Australia, he goes, LOL, you can do it, Andy. There is nothing hard as you think to solder, as they say in Australia. I try to get the L in there.
Yeah, they are. That's right. They're fond of that L down there for some reason. Yeah, I don't. So let's take them in reverse order, and then let everybody give a chance for some other guys to chime in on this too. So they're not impossible to solder. I can do it. I've done some fairly high detail soldering under magnification. I've even soldered in nitrogen. It's basically the equivalent of aquarium with nitrogen in it for in some satellites that were going to orbit, and they have to have the oxygen removed from the solder joints. It's doable, but when you can buy these things for like 70 cents a piece, pre-soldered, you've got to figure your time is worth something. And I think this is the greatest argument and this applies to fine scale modeling and to modeling in general, but very, very much to fine scale modeling. Maybe some people do, but I don't have unlimited time and or unlimited resources. So I have to focus where I want to put my attention. I originally intended to scratch build every structure, head lay all the track, blah, 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 resin kits for all the rolling stock, etc. I think model railroading is a kind of choose your own adventure of a book, of a story. It's a story, and it's a choose your own adventure. But instead, it's a choose your own compromise. You're going to make it. I opted for hand laid super detailed track because I care about it, and I make compromises in other places. And if I can save some time and it's still cost effective, then I buy the pre-soldered. See what I did there? I fit that L in there. Those pre-soldered LEDs, and they work pretty well. And then I'll chime in on Michael's comment real quick, and then we'll see what you guys think about both of those things. So, first, I'm a huge fan of flats. Like he was talking about industrial scenery up against the wall, then adding some extra industries in front. That works fine. It's all about how much space you've got. I think we waste a lot of real estate on our layouts with buildings that are essentially empty. I am a massive fan of flats. Use as much of the surface area of your layout, which will never, in my opinion, and what I do, is I use as much of the surface area as I can for scenery that needs that space. Trees and grass and vegetation and streets, sidewalks, and all that stuff. And for track work, obviously. And for structures that I care about the depth of, like a depot or something. For just about everything else, I designed the layout around using flats. I know Miles is pretty committed to that too. And even Ralph, because he's doing a fairly major project with flats as well, is you just get so much, there's such better use of what limited real estate we always have if you focus on certain things and cover the walls and flats for those big industrial structures that, if done accurately, would take up a square foot or several square feet of usable layout space. What do you guys think? I know, Miles, you're a fan of flats for sure.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Pretty much.
Well, if I can, I'm going to jump in just real quick. This is something I watched Miles do one night during a regular live chat. He was working on a flat, so it's a good idea to, at the top where you got the sky area, try and cut out what you can to show the detail better. And I'll hush now and let Miles go ahead and finish it out.
Yeah, I'll come back to that because that's in the other room, and Andy's asked me to walk through, so I will. What I've been working on right now, since we're talking about fine scale, is I've been working on my Western Auto. Turn this around. Western Auto, here's the Western Auto building, and we'll see it again in the layout here in just a minute. But I've been working on the sign here, and close-up view, you can see that we have Western Auto and we have the arrow. I've cut that out in the laser with the Western part, and then I've cut out the arrow part. So what I've been working on while you guys were talking is making the cans. In the sign business, these letters, and you can see it somewhat on this, that has thickness. There are sides on these, and that's why they call them cans, if I can get a hold of one here. Hard to do with the iPad, but I've actually got sides on these, and my LEDs will go inside here. And Andy's offered to program an Arduino so that this thing works. This was done in about 1920 or so, and the arrow started and it lit up all the way around in sequence, and then Western came on and Auto came on. So the whole thing was on then, and then it all went off, and then it flashed on, and then it went off, and it started again. Arrow builds around, Western, Auto, all off, all on. So anyway, we'll do it that way. But I want you to see the cans here that we've been working on. And I want to talk about one other thing. You kind of hit on it, but not quite. But I've really been excited because I found these a week ago. Here's these push-in connectors like you'd get with a fluorescent light. And that's kind of a, so what? We'll get rid of that. These are what I've been using when I built model railroads. These are from a company called Wago, W-A-G-O. And there are two connectors that you can see here on the end, and they connect with the two connectors on the other side. This is for a Phillips screwdriver, and you push down on that, and it opens up these slots here. You can put almost any size wire from 24 to 12 in it. They're great because they're reusable. We would put them on the bottom side of the railroad, and that would be our connectors between modules. But I went to an electric show at our local electronics place, which has taken the place of Radio Shack since we don't have Radio Shack anymore. This is the new Wago. And these things are, in my opinion, phenomenal. Because you take this little lever, if I can do it with one hand, I don't know if I can. There we go. You open that up. Now it's open there, and this is a butt connector. It just goes, two wires are shoved in. But the neat thing is it'll do 24 to 12, and it's reusable because once I snap that down, whoops, it just went off the floor. Once I snap that down, I can lift it back up and undo it, and I can do it again. So it's reusable again and again and again. This thing just snaps onto the wire. Absolutely fantastic. These are called Wagos, and just so you see the box, these are Wago 221412. And it's 2 times, and it takes 24 to 12 wire. You can get other sizes of them, and you can get them where they're 3, 4, 5, 8 wires all together. Every one of them with a lever, so they're all individually applicable. Anyway, I just thought that was really cool. We'll walk into the layout, and I'll show you some of the other stuff that go back to the background thing. This is going through the crew lounge. And this is the layout, KC terminal. And we come into the layout. Now I have the Kansas City Stockyard building over here on the side. I haven't done much to it lately. But this building is the Western Auto building, and it is now complete. So we'll shut the door, come in, and I'll spin around and show you what's been going on with it. It's huge. It's 3 feet tall, 50 inches long. Not quite as big as the Stockyards building, but close to it. Certainly it's taller than the Stockyards building is. I'm going to put you on a tripod this time. I tried this with the guys earlier, and it didn't work so well. So we'll use a tripod on this time. The one thing that I've always No, not always. The one thing I noticed was that while I have backgrounds that are working all around the walls of the room, this door didn't look so good. So some time ago, I showed Andy, I made a model. Model makers make models. Let's see if I can hold this up far enough out so you can see it. There we go. Yep. So this is my lift out, which goes up and down. And I put a lever on it here on a slide. And I figured I can take a photograph, one of my background photographs, and make it slide across the door. And so the actual application of that has been completed. And now, once it locks and if I lock it, is that we can drop that and we automatically have the grain elevator close up and it comes over and meets my buildings over here on the other side. Now when you're standing in, as you can see, I have black curtains on the bottom all the way around the entire layout. And now I have buildings that totally surround you. I want the feeling that you're in Kansas City, Missouri, in what we call the East Bottoms or the West Bottoms. The Bottoms area is the area along by the Missouri and the Kansas rivers. And yes, in Missouri, you say Missouri, you don't say Missouri. But nonetheless, it's all the area along beside the rivers. And it was the industrial area. It was where the stockyards were. It's where all the industrial buildings were. We had Moline plow and John Deere plow. We had Faultless Starch that was here. Emery Burden Thayer, which is a local department store, regional. We had Western Auto. We had all kinds of things, and those buildings all existed down essentially in the bottoms. Western Auto wasn't. It was actually downtown, but everything in here is a Kansas City building, so I kind of take some license. But the grain elevators certainly were part of the bottoms. So anyway, I'll turn you around here a little bit and give you a view as you come.
That was a less than elegant turd, but he'll be right back. See, he's a perfect person for the argument about flats. You see how flats he is.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. So if I pan around here, we've got the background showing. And this now I have backgrounds that go all the way around the room in its entirety. Yeah, and I don't know why. That's there. That's better. iPad was not cooperating. So we go on across. I have made all of these now so that they have doors that I can switch to. Even though this is actually more or less my main line, I have it arranged so that I can spot boxcars too. We were talking about operations with flats. The Stewart Hall sign, Stewart Hall, those of you that went to school and had your notebooks, they were all printed by Stewart Hall. That sign will go up on top. Stewart Hall was also here. We go on around Stowe Hardware, which was actually a Studebaker plant at one point. Really kind of cool. Moline plow, if you've seen old plows. This is one thing that I did with the photographs. This was a suggestion from Larry Deal, my architect's friend. I was trying to think of ways to treat the corners. And this is a corner. Up here you can see I've got a ceiling and two walls coming together. It's a cyclorama, so you don't really see the corner, but trust me, it's there. So this building is on one plane and 90 degrees opposed. This building is on the other. What I did on Photoshop is I came in and I turned that side away. So it looks like that street is going right back in and disappearing. And then we come on around. I haven't got the black curtains up on everything yet, but we will hopefully before too long. TWA was here, Transworld Airlines. And then I have the entire skyline of Kansas City behind my little city that I'm still working on here, stuck in place. And then we come on around, here, and we're back to the backgrounds that pull over, and you can see that it's all continuous across there. When I get this fence in on the front of this, why it'll look a little bit better, but nonetheless. So, sure. Up here where I did the grain elevator, I came back and I cut a bunch of these out so that you actually see through to the blue that's there. They are Uh-oh. Okay. I've got them cut out so you can see through to the background. There where the blue is. Anyway, and I do the same thing here. I took this house, this access house was up on top on the photograph, and I cut that off, and I've glued that back then onto the background. I think you can see there, it's on the back of the roof. So these actually, in real life, this has, if I get my finger here, this has one dimension, and this one is further back. And I think, I'm going to do it again, but I just haven't done it yet. I like that effect. The other corner I had was this one. And this one I kind of came up with the design. It's the only one I could. I ran out of ideas, so I started asking everybody else how to do it. But this building comes out, jogs back, comes back, and then goes back. And that, if I hold you up a little bit, you may be able to see it covers that corner then and turns it. But to the person viewing down here, it just looks like the street that's coming in from this way and then the street that's coming this way. They kind of come together. When I get the windows in this one, then I'm also going to come back in with, I have some other sky building buildings that are photographed, and those will go back in behind, hidden behind that.
Nice.
We drop it down. So it'll give a little depth in that. I'm going to do the same thing, have done the same thing. Here I have 3 buildings, 3 flats that are stacked together. Stowe is back behind, which gives it a little distance. Look to it, and I don't like the TWA building as a foreground building because it has a street access, and all my other buildings have dock doors. So I've got another building coming, and it's going to go in front of this, and you'll just see the top couple of floors of TWA. When we're done, you'll hide it behind. Did the same thing over here. This is one flat, and that's another flat behind. Again, just to try and create some distance.
Some comments while you're moving about in the chat. The guys were talking about adding depth to these buildings, and of course I wanted to wait till you had showed more of those buildings so people could see that nearly all of your buildings have depth and variable depth. This Michael Labertino was talking about, I believe, was talking about putting the flats or the photos he has on his backdrop. I've seen a lot of people just take and cut the flat out and glue it to a piece of foam core or something that gives it a little bit of depth so it can get your eye is amazing at detecting even subtle differences in depth.
Yes, this is only about an inch and a quarter, but what I've done is out, back, out, back, out, back, and I tried to do that around most of the layout here. I've come back out again. These two are flat, but this one comes out, back, out, back, out, back, out. And that undulation back and forth really adds, I think, a lot to the scene because they all of a sudden they become 3-dimensional and not 2-dimensional. And all I had to do was just, in every case, like with this building, I took a strip in Photoshop off of this end and then copied it and printed it. And that's my piece that I've added then to that end there. So it's just continuous. That way my trim pieces all match up, both on the cornice and everything else. And it also gives me the same color brick on that particular building. Did the same thing here with Nellie Dawn. All of them that stand out, that's the way they were done, was just simply to copy that corner and then use it as the relief coming out.
So Miles, on those flats.
Yes.
I think you mentioned it in one of the other shows. They are photographic flats. There's no raised portions other than maybe you've added a doorway or something, correct?
That is correct. I don't think I've added even a doorway to the flats that I have up right now. My philosophy was this. I'm already 70. I can come back in, and what I want to do is what's right in front of me right now. Let's take this building out because it's just a thing to show people when they come in. What I've done is I've taken an actual front, which this one is from Chooch, Michael Connell, and I put the photographic brick on the side. At some point, I'll cut that door that's laying there into it. But my focus is now going to be to try and model the black building here to finish up this building and get it done. I want to work on the buildings that are out three-dimensional, and I'm not going to work on a lot of these things that are back against the background for now. If I live long enough and I can, then I'll come back and I'll add detail to these. I've been told that if I had been smarter, and the person that told me this was 100% right, I don't disagree at all. If I had not put the fire escape on, if I'd gone in with my clone tool and taken that out, I could have put a Tichy fire escape on there, and it would have looked much better with a three-dimensional fire escape than it does with the printed. He's right, but that would have been modeling time par excellence. I mean, a lot of it just for my flat. When I've got buildings out here in the layout that are sitting here like this, that they're just monolithic pieces of gator board. I've got a city over here that was filmed for Trainmasters 3-4 years ago and is not done yet. So I've got a lot of modeling to do out in the center of the railroad. I want to do that first before I come back and try and make the flats 1,000% better. But for right now, they've got dock doors. I can switch to them. They've become part of the operations, and they look good as they are. So, hey. And every building in here is a photograph of a building. 99% of them are from the bottoms or from Kansas City. The big one you're looking at is the only one that isn't. It's from Platte City, Nebraska. The grain elevator.
That's what some of the guys were asking about in the chat, is where you got where you got those buildings from, but where you got the photos from. But I figured you would mention that, and it's Miles did a pretty good video on Trainmaster TV about the Photoshop effort to create some of these photos. In my particular case, the backdrops I need just don't exist anymore for me to take a photo of. The mountains of Appalachia and all those structures for 1950 just flat don't look the same. So I probably will have to buy some photos, but for structures, the buildings are still there. So find them, and Miles has done a really good instruction video on how to Photoshop those and turn that into a building.
Now, one thing I'll give you the benefit of some of my other mistakes that I made. I photographed Sherwin-Williams over there, and if you'll notice, all the windows are boarded up. A lot of these, Emery Bird and Thayer over here, Stern Slegman Prinz, those windows were kind of half good, half bad. I finally took the time and spent the time to go in, and if there was a window that was boarded up, I copied a good one and pasted it in, because I wanted to backdate these buildings to a time when they were in better shape. I didn't really want ones that were not good looking windows. Show you a quick example here on Nellie Dawn. If you look, if I can get my finger to work right. See that little white thing up there at the top of the window? You notice it's over here. So I don't know which one was the first one, but one of these windows was bad, and I simply copied it and dropped it in. And I did that with a lot of windows to try and make them, or try to make the buildings look better than what they were. So first thing is, take your photograph, square it up, do all the things I talked about, but then come back in and kind of date the things a little bit better. I misspoke. The elevator here is from the bottoms, but this elevator is from Nebraska, Platte City. But that's the only elevator I think in here, only building in here that's not actually from Kansas City.
All right, Miles, I've got a comment.
Uh-huh.
I see a problem on your layout.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
Well, now that you've done this photo backdrop where your lift out is, and you get that railing disguised, people come in once they've been around, because now that you've been around this layout several times, you get all the curtains up, you're going to have to put some kind of exit sign up so they'll know where the door is.
Well, it even gets worse than that. I'll do something here real quick to kind of demonstrate it to you. We'll kick that out of the way for a second here, and I'll set you up with my other problem, which I solved this morning. I did some graphics work on the computer here. Let's see if we can spin this around, and I'll put you guys on the steps here. You see the doorway? Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, this is hard to do, but we'll give it a shot. You cannot let this thing down from outside the room. But we'll try the best we can. Put that down. So if you opened up the door, that's what you'd see now is the stop sign, because there's no way to get in. And it simply says you're welcome, but please ask somebody inside to lift you. Outside. You really can't lift that gate from the outside. And for me, I mean, I have to get down on my hands and knees and crawl through there, and that's not the easiest thing in the West. But I'll do it later on.
You need a chair that you cut down.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
right. Yeah.
Work under your layout. You can roll around on it.
But he has one of those. He does his wiring on that's like laid back and everything. So
yeah, I took a beach chair, one of the laid back lawn chairs with the really short legs. Y'all were talking about interiors and that kind of stuff, so I thought I got one building here that illustrates. So at least I have one building that's on topic for tonight. I did this one years ago. I think this was done when I was in San Antonio. This is the York building from way back. It's either 101 or 102 or something way back. Anyway, so I built the whole shell, and I made that so that it lifts off. And then inside, and I don't have it on there right now, but you can take a rubber band and put it from this pulley to that pulley. And I have a motor back here that turns, and it turns my ceiling fan, as you can see it.
wow,
Nice.
Let me get
I
like animation, so used to do a lot more of it than I do now. Let's see if I can get this thing to work here. Yeah. Oh, shoot. All right. iPhone doesn't like me. It says I've not updated. I don't know if I've got, here we go. Sorry, I'm working off camera. You don't know what I'm seeing. All right, so there's my flashlight. You can see the ceiling fan up there, and it turns.
that's awesome.
So, and then in order to do that, then what I had to do was, it's not too much light. I've got a connector here like we use for the DCC stuff. I can unconnect that so I can get my rubber band around there. And then, of course, this wire goes through. I've got a piece of blue plastic. Oops, this doesn't fall off everything. Where's my thing? There we go. Got a piece of blue plastic. There we go. It's almost too much light. Good boy. There's a piece of blue plastic here. It insulates, and that's so that my wires can go through. And the globe light that that Andy was talking about earlier, that globe actually lights up in there. So that's my light for the store. And then for the storeroom, I've got another globe light. I get it turned right. There we go. There we go. Globe light down in there, which lights up the storeroom, and it's detailed for when you look in.
What kind of globes? Where'd you get those globes from?
They're light bulbs. This is pre-LED times. So
There was a pre-LED?
oh yeah, right. way before LEDs. This was done probably in 1974, 75, something like that.
Of course.
Back when you were a gleam in your dad's eye, you know.
I built MIDI layouts with gray to wheat bulbs and replaced MIDI gray to wheat bulbs, and they did their job.
Yeah. But anyway, that's Yardang Hardware. I worked for Ed Yardang Advertising Agency. That's where I first started after I left the railroad. And I worked as a paste-up artist, production artist there. But it was a good experience, had a good time. So I built a little building to kind of honor Ed Yardang. But anyway, Ed Yardang, by the way, is a totally fictitious person. They had this gigantic poster picture, old time, probably turn of the century daguerreotype, but it was 3 feet across. It was probably 8 feet tall with this dapper gentleman standing there at the desk, you know, and everybody said that was Ed Yardang. The only trouble was all of us that worked there knew that there never was an Ed Yardang. It was totally fictitious and made up. Anyway, so we had a lot of fun with it. But that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm working on, is the Western Auto thing, to try and get it ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is build the structure for the Stewart Hall sign, and I'll get the Stewart Hall sign cut out and get it put up. And then I'm pretty much ready to work on the buildings that are out in the middle of the railroad in that city, and start to work on them.
Yeah, you can't cheat and build all those with flats. You still ultimately have to build a lot of structures for a layout. So anytime you can make a city look like it's a doggone lot bigger with, you know, a half-inch of real estate lost,
yeah,
that's a win. I basically designed the track plan on my layout to take advantage of flats. My towns are all flats. I'm not modeling. You know, there's an interlocking tower and the section house that I built for the first that we built on the first couple episodes of this series. Those are four-sided structures. I've got some houses that are, but every city structure I have is a flat. Every single structure.
cool.
Just real quick, just to let Miles know, 'cause I know he can't see the chat, but a lot of the guys were saying your layout's really nice. They really appreciate the tour. Hillbilly Railroad, which you know is Scott, he said maybe someday when he gets indoor plumbing, you might come out and help him out on his layout.
Well, that'd be all right. Good.
That way you won't have to run out to the outhouse.
Well,
When you get the indoor plumbing.
I lived a long time, you know, not too far from Andy over there in Kentucky, so I'm kind of used to the no plumbing thing.
We got plumbing.
Yeah, well, Scott, he knows I'm going to mess a little bit if I can.
I have to give Andy a hard time. I lived there for too long.
Yeah.
Kentucky's a unique place, but Scott's over in West Virginia, so that's a whole nother.
Oh, that's a whole nother thing.
That's right.
But then at least he doesn't live in that foreign country, Tennessee.
Yep, they are. I lived in Tennessee too. That's a unique breed as well.
When we first moved to Louisville, they walked up to my wife at the place where she was working, and they said to her, "Are you blue or are you red?" Meaning, is she for Louisville or is she for Kentucky? And she said, "Neither. I'm black and gold. I'm from Iowa."
So you either fit in with all of them or are an equal outcast to all of them. So
that's just what it amounts to. Yes, I got the same exact question the first day I went to work at Vermont American. You blue or
they're
you
serious
red?
about it.
Yeah, you blue or you red? I'm neither, buddy.
Got a question here, Miles, from Cool Tropolis, Small Railroad. He's one of our newer members. He's been coming in on our nightly live chats. Really nice fella. Building the layout. He said, are you using paper to make the vertical side of the cans as well? Probably for the sign, Western Auto sign.
I used O-scale 1x4s for the straight letters. When I went where I had to do the curves, the O, the S, the U, those are done with a Strathmore paper, which is pretty thick paper. You can tell. You can't really tell by looking at it much difference in the thickness between the paper and the wood.
What kind of paper was that?
It's a Strathmore.
Like greeting cards are made out of.
Yeah.
Greeting cards or mat board?
Mat board's way too thick. Mat board's probably 1.5 millimeters. These are probably 6,000, 7,000 thick, I would guess. I don't know. I can tell you in a minute.
Still, it's a slightly, just ever so slightly thinner than what I call shirt box cardboard.
Let's see if I can. I know.
You can buy it and run it through a printer even.
I know.
Just barely. But
some of you up in Canada, so I'll give you my count if I can get my calipers to turn on here. Again, if I can find a caliper that has a battery in it. Golly. Well, there's one finally. All right, let's see if I can find a piece of the paper still around here. Here we go. Actually, what I used was the same photo paper that I used to print the stop sign on. That's showing, that can't be right. Zero that thing. Come on, zero out. Shoot, that's not even registered on that one. Oh, man. When in doubt, go back to the old dials that don't take a battery. Okay, this is showing about 10 thousandths, I would guess. So whatever 10 thousandths would come out in millimeters, that's what the paper was.
Centimeters.
It's a real thick matte photo paper. Same thing, like I say, I used to print that stop sign and the wording below it.
It's probably a little thicker than a 1/2 mil.
I would guess, yeah. But it bends nice. It doesn't tear. It's just a good high quality paper. Strathmore. I said Strathmore because I know Strathmore would work very well.
So it's almost like poster board then.
Yeah, I say it's a photographic, print paper, so it's
Yep.
it's fairly thick.
Yep.
I mean, it's it's got some body to it, but it is not as thick as railroad board, or certainly not as thick as matte board would be.
If you just go buy photo print paper, you can buy matte photo print paper from Hewlett Packard or somebody else meant to go through a printer. It's
pretty thick.
Yeah, it's a little expensive to buy it that way, but
I use of it. That's the one thing that I was going to use that photo paper for all of those backgrounds, but when I found out that the ink from the home printer runs when it gets wet, I couldn't use Signage cement to plant the buildings. That's when I really got discouraged, and the layout set for almost a year with nothing being done on those backgrounds and me kind of discouraged. And when I found that Centra and the UV ink print, that's what made all of that in there possible. Because now I can spray alcohol, I can spray Signage cement, I can spray whatever on it, and that stuff just doesn't let go. It's going to take methylene chloride or acetone to move that ink, and I'm not going to use either one of those around that.
All right, Cool Tropolis Miles said, are you going to put a lens type paper on top? I guess the letters.
Oh, you mean to cover the cans?
Yeah.
Undecided.
Yeah, he said of the cans.
I don't know yet. I've debated about filling them with crazy glue after I put the LEDs in. I was anxious to listen to what Andy was saying about the canopy glue. You could fill them with canopy glue and leave them kind of clear. They make translucent markers that you can make stained glass out of at Joann's, Michael's, etc. I could cover the tops of them with that at that point, because my letters are essentially red, so I could come back with a red translucent marker over the top. The other thing is that in the real sign itself, the sides of the can are left simply to keep the spill from the light from going to the side. I don't believe that in those cans, I believe they're open front cans. When the sign was originally built, those were screw-in light bulbs, and they were just open to the air. They just put the can sides on to keep that light from spilling from one letter to the next, or from the arrow onto the letters. So, matter of fact, if you look at the photograph, this is a fairly recent photograph. I think you can see all of these dots in here are a bulb.
Yeah.
I don't know how many, probably 2,000 bulbs or something to light this thing up. But I tried a little LED in one of the cans in the wet. I painted the W this afternoon, because I wanted to see how bright it would be. And I don't know, but I don't think I'm going to put, but probably maybe if I put in this W, if I put one at the top, one down here, one here, one there, I might put 5 or 6 in here and call it good. because they're going to be pretty doggone bright. And at that point, yes, I think he's right. I think we need some kind of a diffuser or something on the front of the can. Realistic or not, I may do that just for, you know, some things don't transfer to modeling. And
which we could dim those LEDs with the Arduino code too, and we probably will. I mean, in most everything I'm doing, I'm not using LEDs at anywhere near their peak brightness.
I say, are you doing the pulse width modulation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get better life. That's the key to getting life, and the reason that I'm completely in agreement with you and Ralph, because we've had this conversation. Ralph and I have too. The Woodland Signage Light Hub Kit. If you do not want independent control of per light controls, like you don't want a structure with 20 lights in it that individually have to change at different times, or like that sign that you're building, the Woodland Signage Light Hub is the key. It's the ticket. And you can even hook an Arduino to that and control it. You can't control the dimming, but you can turn it on and off with the remote switch function of that. But it does.
No, but you can pre-dim it to what you want it to be, because it has the rheostats built into it.
That's right. You can pre-dim it.
That's what I was doing in my experiment this afternoon. I had it plugged into the Light Hub, the Woodland Signage Light Hub, and I actually dimmed it down probably to 50% or so, just so I could get it down, because otherwise it just, as an old friend of mine from San Antonio used to say, it was bilious beyond belief. It just took off and went crazy, and you got to get it down, or it's just way too much, especially in that small space.
Well, Woodland Signage did it right when they built that Light Hub. They did it the right way, and you will have a product and LEDs that will guarantee the life expectancy and all the benefit of LEDs. The biggest benefit of LEDs is the life expectancy. I mean, actually, we have to compromise in a few ways, like having to use these globes that I'm using to try to make them. You know, if I used a grated wheat bulb, it would already look like a bulb. You know, I have to do things to make these LEDs look like bulbs. But what I trade off for is just about entirely to get life expectancy.
Yeah.
So, but then a lot of people go and hook them up directly to a DC pack with resistors, and they will still outlast grated wheat bulbs. But they won't last a long time, or as long. They're not going to last you 20 years if you do that. You're not properly controlling the voltage. You need the pulse width modulation to give you that 20 years or more life expectancy.
Well, and at my point, I really don't want to have to come back in 20 years when I'm 90 and have to rewire these things. So I'll try and do it up front.
As far as doing the PVA or the canopy glue, I'd be real cautious, since you use the paper sides. The PVA glue, if you get a really good one, will do the job, but as it dries, it'll start to pull the sides in.
Oh, it shrinks. Okay.
Right, as it shrinks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it does. It's a vinyl, so it's going to contract. I didn't think about that in my use case. I'm putting it in plastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we got a couple of comments here. One of them is Hillbilly Railroad. He said, okay, I got one. When printing out, what should be the percentage for HO in scale? Thank you very much for your time. I think when you're printing out letters and stuff like that, your signs.
Depends on how far away you were when you took the picture. So what you need is something to scale it from. So
I think what I did for my sign clinic, if you take that photograph and put it into Word or in a good graphics program that has the ruler top and bottom, you can size that picture to the rule on the side or on the top. In Microsoft Word, it's so easy. You just click on the picture, you get those 4 dots, and you can actually shrink it into the size you want.
Yeah.
Real world sizes, real world inches.
Yeah, in real world inches. So
that's what I decided. I decided all my buildings were going to have 12-foot floors, so that's 3 inches in O scale. I just came in on the rules, and if it was 1.5 inches, I knew I had to make it 200% to get it to 3 inches. But whatever it takes to make it size out like what you want it to print.
There is a formula, and if you Google it on the internet, for taking a photograph and printing it. Say you have a PDF and it says it's in N scale. There's a formula for bringing it up to HO scale, or vice versa, from HO down to N scale.
But you can't go from the real world that way, because it depends on how far away it was. Like I'm working on a coal loadout, and I have pictures of it, but there's coal hoppers sitting there that I know the size of. So you take something that's near the building you're using that you know the size of, like the window in the building. You may not know the size of the building, but you can look at that window, figure out roughly what size, or a door. A door is 6 foot 8 inches, possibly 7 foot on an industrial building. So take that measurement, figure out how far it is and what your proportion is, and then that's the proportion you work with for everything else.
And also, I hate to keep coming back to my old buddies, but if you go to the Woodland Scenics website and type in there, they have a scale conversion app, which is totally free. You can put it in on an Adreno or an Android or an iPhone, and it will figure any scale up or down for any scale that you could possibly imagine. Everything from 12 inch to 3/8 to ½ inch to 1/4 inch to NTT, whatever. They're all in the program, and it's absolutely fantastic. And
it's a good program, especially for free.
Yeah,
this
totally.
Woodland Scenics scaler, and you just take your real world size that you're working with. You want 100 feet, and you tell it what scale it's going to be, and it'll break it down. That 100 feet in 187 scale should be 13 foot or 13 inches, 0.79 of an inch. They will try to sell you some dogs and cats down here at the bottom, but it's great, and it's free, and it's right on your phone.
Yeah.
All right, we got Andrew. He says, how would vellum work for covering the letters?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Doesn't shrink. Got that going for you. Yeah.
And the only glue point is the top of the paper, not the sides.
Yeah.
All right, Ron trains in things. He's from down in that area too. I used to drive, well, yeah, right. Right by that old sign as a kid, riding with my dad. So, you know, he had the little steering wheel in his seat over there.
The car seat.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to mess with Ron a little bit, and I'm losing my train of thought. But hauling livestock through the city to the stockyards in the bottoms, just a few blocks from there. So yeah, he's seen that actual building and sign when it was up.
Is that sign unique to there, or did they have that same sign in other places?
The sign was the logo of Western Auto, and it normally was hung on the front of the building, but it normally was 3 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, whatever tall. This one is, you know, like 3-4 floors tall, and it is on the headquarters of what was Western Auto.
Okay.
Yeah, Cooltropolis said the color lens papers from Stage Lighting.
Yeah.
The jails.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ralph just answered Sparky's question about what is vellum.
Vellum is drafting paper.
Yeah.
You can get it in 2 styles. You can actually get it in a Mylar as well.
Yes.
And you can get it at Michael's and Hobby Lobby. I've seen it there in their drafting departments.
Yeah.
You know, so I know, Andy, I haven't been giving you time checks, which is coming up on hour 15.
Okay.
And
I've been working along under camera anyway, so I got my box built, painted it, and I've got my lights and my domes, and to be able to reach back in there, I had to flip a couple. Yeah, there. Miles built his couple boxes. Same. I mean, there's nothing complicated about this to talk about. What I'm surprised by is I had never seen it before until recently. I mean, I've seen interiors and structures for 50 years in the hobby, and they were always interiors and structures. Never have I seen these boxes, and this is the ticket, in my opinion.
Yep.
And you can do it in flats. You know, if you have a flat like mine is a flat, it happens to be about 2 inches deep, 2.5 inches deep. But I'm going to do it in, you know, like I'm going to build the plastic ones. They go in this structure, and they're going to be whatever the width of that is. They're that deep. So you just build it as deep as you need, and then take a piece of, you know, put you a flat back on it so you can hide the electronics and stuff, like, you know, for sale. Make you a back out of it to cover everything up. And I'm gonna, but you want to do what Miles did with that structure that had the fan in it. You want these things to be removable so you can get in them. You know, we don't have any 1/87 scale or 1/4 inch scale people to go do the dusting and cleaning. So, oh, you got the light on?
Yeah.
Yeah, turn it on.
Lit up already.
Yeah.
And that's the tiniest chip LED, which is hanging right there.
Yeah, it's 0402.
It flat blows the camera right out.
Yeah, you can't use them at full brightness under any application. I've used them at like 20 or 25%, if that. So dimming is just a requirement, either through the Woodland Signage mechanism, or in my case, I want to be able to control the lights independently, so in Arduino.
There we go.
So you just don't need that much light. I mean, you don't want it to look like somebody has a, you know, has a nuclear furnace glowing inside that structure, you know. And especially if you're modeling a period era like mine, you know, in 1950, rooms were not that well lit like they are today.
No. And actually, if you can buy the chips that have that yellow cast to them, if you're
that's what I buy.
If you're trying to do anything like 1960 and before, you're better off with that yellow cast because it has much more of an incandescent bulb look than the bluer ones that look more fluorescent.
Yeah, everything I buy pretty much is the warm white. The only place I will use the clear white is like overhead layout lighting, but in structures, it's always this. Now, if you're modeling an era from the late 60s or 70s up, you need to take into account what light you're trying to recreate. If you're recreating an incandescent bulb, that's basically, an incandescent bulb is basically a heater that also, as a byproduct, puts out a little bit of light, but it's basically a heater. So it's a reddish orange illumination to it. It looks white to you in some cases, but when you compare it to LED or vacuum fluorescent or fluorescent or any of those other types, they're white. Now, if you're modeling an office building in the 70s or 80s, you probably want to use the pure whites so that you can get an LED effect or a fluorescent tube effect. And what I think would be the best way to get fluorescent, because I've thought about this, talking to the community with it, is take these 0402s and do what I did with these little domes, but take a piece of tube and make yourself a light pipe with it, a short light pipe, and spray it with some dull coat so you get a natural diffusion with it, and then drill a hole and stick this thing down in it so it lights the whole pipe up, and you have a fluorescent fixture that's illuminated that has some length to it.
The other thing is, if you want to change those colors, do what I was talking about. Go to Michael's or Joanne's and get those markers that are made for doing stained glass, because you can change that light to any color you want, and it's translucent. It'll pass the light beautifully.
Yeah, and a person ought to change a little bit of light. I've been buying these from a few different manufacturers, hoping I got some variability in it. That's something we often don't do in modeling. Is the world is quite dynamic and variable, and we don't often model enough of that variability.
All right, here we go. Andrew, one that's building that big long bridge. Was that the Nelson Bridge?
Yeah.
He just come up with a good one here for you. F.W. Woolworths.
Yep.
That's a while back.
Or S. Kresge's.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Chris. Macy's. They're going now too. No, I guess there still are Renzetti.
Or in this part of the country, in Appalachia, it was doll hairs. That was the, and they're gone now. So all those places are gone. I think that those things. That's like what we talked about when we did this side show the other day. We were talking or a couple months ago. We were talking about it. I think signs, details matter. I think details are the difference between. Or if there is a single characterization of the difference in high fidelity and whatever type of a class of modeling, it's detail. It's the attention to detail. That's the differentiator. If you have to define it as one thing, but if you want to, period, you want somebody to feel like they're in 1950 or 1970 or 1912. Signs and automobiles are in my opinion, the absolute two best ways to plant a person in an era, because buildings don't change that much. And most people visiting, and even railroad people, locomotives that were built in the 50s are still, some of those are still running today. And locomotives built in 1900 were still running to 60. They live a long life. Automobiles, not as much so, and signs especially not as much so. So they really plant the era of your layout. And the details are what we're all about with this stuff. They change things a lot. Like in 1950, these roof accesses, that's how they did it. There was a door through a stairwell. Today, you'll see pop-up hatches, and you'll see the ladders going up from the fire escapes. Those are the differences that plant an era on your scene. Or I'm working with the guttering that I'm going to do. So next month when we come back to this, we'll have some interiors. Ralph's made pretty good progress on his. Mine's basically ready to do the interior detail work and some wallpaper and stuff for it. And Lloyd will be back from Mexico if he makes it back. And he's already done some of that stuff, put photos in the back of his too. So look forward to interior stuff for the next one. We'll bring this plastic structure to a close as we get started and get ready for the next upcoming show. We'll be planting these on the layout. So we will be working with some sidewalks and streets, and trying to make these buildings not look like they're flying away, but that they have the weight and heft that they should have and set. So that's the next couple upcoming shows. You guys please comment on the YouTube video or the G Plus community about any of the particular details you'd like to see us pay attention to, so we can prepare for that. Or we look forward to seeing you in a couple months, or next month when that show comes up. Thank you very much, Miles and Ralph, for hanging with us as always.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Alrighty. Well, that was another good show there, Andy, Miles, Ralph. Appreciate y'all doing the show for us. Well, like you guys really enjoyed this one out there in the chat. I want to say go to YouTubeMallBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules for the Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Those air at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. The Thursday every week show, and the Saturday once a month show with Bill and Barry. Those shows air at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So be sure and check the times and your time zones so you won't be missing a show. If you're working out of town and do miss the show, that's not a problem. We do record these shows, and you will find them on the YouTube channel, YouTube Mall Builders. We do have playlists there for them, so you could go check the playlist to catch up on any shows you might have missed. Also, be sure and click the e-mag, sign up for an email notification. JD and his group put out a good magazine there. Also, we got 2 new shows. One is already aired, and it comes on Wednesdays. Be the 3rd Wednesday of the month. It's called Into the Locomotive Shop. That's with Joe Desmond. And the next show will be October the 18th. That will be 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So be sure and check in on that one. Joe's really got himself a good show going there. Also, we've got another new show that's starting up this month on October the 24th. That's going to be the 4th Tuesday of the month. And that's with our very own Ralph Renzetti here. It's a show that he does at clinics. It's weathering, workbench to mainline. So Ralph's going to give us a clinic there in multiple series for during weathering. He's going to show us from the basics on up and get you started so that you can improve your weathering on your locomotives, rolling stock, and buildings. So you want to be sure and watch those shows too. Ralph will be doing a show once a month for us. He'll probably be the 4th Tuesday of every month. So be sure and check that one out too, along with Joe's Into the Locomotive Shop. I want to say thank you for coming in tonight and watching the show. Please give us comments when the video comes out, which will be about 30 minutes from now. Let us know how we're doing, what you want to see, because Andy and everybody's always looking for ideas on what we can do to improve the shows, or at least show you what you want to look for, what you want to know about. So y'all have a good evening, and what's today, Tuesday? Alright, we got another Thursday night show coming up this Thursday. So we'll see you this coming Thursday at the Johnny Mall Train Talk Show. Y'all have a good evening, and we'll see you then.